Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar. Inspiration Software is the embroidery software line of G7 Solutions and designs and machine embroidery. Our Inspiration Software line includes My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, Perfect Embroidery Pro, Perfect Stitch Viewer, Word Art and Stitches, and My Quilt Planner. Tonight's webinar is No Seam Ripper Needed. We have a wonderful team assisting us tonight. Inspiration Tech Support Team, Chris L., Nancy R., Dory N. And I would like to present you to the one who is frayed at the edges. And again, thank you for joining us and enjoy the webinar. Go ahead, Tamara.
Thank you, Dory. Yes, I am a little, but the good news is with my new computer that I got this week, I'm hoping that I sound better, I look better, and things go faster. So as far as response time on my computer, I want to welcome you all. This is such a fun program to play with. I've decided in my life, since I travel quite a bit, I've turned into really truly a virtual quilter. Unfortunately, my family doesn't think that those are cool, you know, birthday and Christmas gifts, but I have so much fun creating designs and new things and being able to see it all put together and how I'm going to stitch it out. So we're just going to start with some basics today with my quilt planner and see how it works. So the first thing I want to do, we'll come back to this screen in a minute. This is an Irish chain. I want to go open a new file, and so I have a new page here. You can choose to have a grid or not have a grid. That's entirely up to you. I choose most of the time not to because seeing all those lines interferes with the lines on my blocks and my quilt and my quilting designs and all of that. So I typically don't, but if you want to, you can. The first thing we want to look at here is we have icons, and you'll be familiar with a lot of these. This is the file open. These are all of your normal Windows functions right here, cutting and pasting and editing. Our favorite, undo and redo, your view percentage, where you can change your views, and some rotation tools here. Down at the bottom, on the left-hand side here, are all of our different icons for viewing, looking at it in 3D, turning the grid off and on. If you have any other software of G7 Solutions, the Inspiration software, you'll be familiar with these. And if you hover over them, if you're not familiar with it, it will show you what it does. So let's go up to the ones that are really pertinent to our purpose with my quilt planner. Right here we have composing a full quilt. Now the purpose of my quilt planner is to plan the quilting designs, the repetitions, where they go, whether it's in sashing, in a block, on borders, all of that. So it's assuming that you have or are looking at a finished quilt. So let's start off with something just very simple. I'm going to select my quilt, and here's where I can set up the size for it, the width of the blocks, the block shape. Now you'll notice here with the shape, I've selected rectangle, but we could do diamond, we could do brick, just to get a few different layouts going there. But let's go back to rectangle because we're going to keep it simple tonight. Then sashing. I can set my sashing to be 1 inch wide, going around each block. I can add a border if I want. Right now I do not have one selected, but I can add that in. And then down here is kind of the important part to how we set it up. I'm going to start with making this even more simple than it is right now. I'm going to eliminate the sashing by putting a 0 in there and a 0 in there. So now I have a 36 by 36 inch quilt. My blocks are each 6 inches, and that goes all the way to the edge of the quilt. This is really handy if you want to do edge-to-edge quilting, okay, which is very popular and a great way to get a quilt finished quickly and with whatever designs you have. I'm going to come down now to my repeats down here in the bottom. I'm sorry, I do have that. Okay, I haven't set everything up on my new computer yet. So I'm going to pick a cell color, and we'll just go ahead and pick this gold color. And my preview color, I like to make it a darker color, the black. And then I'll say, first I have to go in and color all of my blocks. And I'm coloring them all the exact same color. And you'll see why in just a moment. And we'll come back also to shorty hooping sequence. So I click OK. This puts the quilt on my screen. Now, I do want to check to see that my measurements on the ruler are what I want. Yes, they're in inches. I think in inches. I work in inches. If I'm forced to go to metric, I can, but I'll switch right back to inches when I'm done. So I'm in inches. Now, here's all we have to do. If I want to come up here in the top left corner and click on the quilt designs, I can select one of the designs that come with my quilt embellisher. And there are quite a few of them built in. The number escapes me off the top of my head, but quite a few. We have singles and rectangles and squares. And since we're dealing with a square, let's just pick a square design. How about let's do this one right here. And it says it's 7 by 7. But that's okay. All I have to do is fit it into one block. Now, you'll notice since it's 7 by 7, it's larger than the block. Not a problem. I don't have to go over and transform it, which I could. I'm going to just come up here to the top left-hand side and say fit to cell. Each one of these little numbered squares is a cell. Now it fitted exactly to the cell. If I toggle my quilt, meaning turn off the color that I've added to it, then I can see pretty much how that's going to quilt over the whole thing. And since this is 6 inches by 6 inches, I could easily accomplish this with an 8 by 8 inch hoop. But if I want to get a little bit more creative with it, instead of doing the exact same design over the whole thing, let's go back. Let's turn our quilt back on and go back to our composition tool here. And I'm going to add another color. Let's add, let's do contrast, so we'll do blue. And I'm going to click every other one to make it the blue color. When you go to add a design, whatever color you put the cell, whatever color the cell is will repeat for all the cells. So you only have to do it one time. Now, let's say OK. Now you'll notice that design that we used is only in the blue squares. So let's add a different design. And we'll go back to our quilt designs up here on the second row of commands on the left-hand side and select something different. Maybe we'll do just a little bit different. We'll do one with a flower in it, a different flower, and say OK. I'm going to pull that down to any one of the gold-colored squares. Now I want you to notice, if you ever have the situation where it doesn't go in all of them, you see it's not in the row 1 up here or column A, it's too big for those edge ones. So we just go back and say, up here in the top left-hand side, fit to cell, and now it fills all of them in. So let's see what that looks like if it's all stitched out. I kind of like that. We get a little bit different variety in the way our quilt looks with those different designs in the different cells, and you go all across, and that would be lovely with a whole cloth quilt or even a simple baby quilt. Something, if you've just got different colors in each of those blocks, that would be fine. Now let's take this let's turn our quilt back on. We're going to change it up just a little bit more. We'll go back up to our quilt here, compose a full quilt, and this time I'm going to add sashing in. I want to do vertical 1 inch wide and horizontal 1 inch wide. And that still fits in the 36 by 36, but you notice we only have 5 blocks going across now instead of 6. If I was to do 2 inches wide, let's do 2 here. You'll notice I'm not filling out my entire quilt there. So let's go back to 1 and say OK. And here's our quilt. And I'm just going to, oh, we've got to go back and add color to it. I forgot to do that. So let's do the same color in all of these blocks. Since we'll have some contrast with the borders in the corners, or the sashing in the corners, and we'll click OK. Now I'm going to select one of these, and I can pick any block I want to fit it into, and delete the other. Delete. Oh, my delete key is different on this computer. Okay, let's fit that to the cell so that it fits in perfect. Okay, now we have all of these borders, but none of them are colored. So what I need to do is go back to my quilt, and this time we're going to color them. We'll do it in a different color. I'm going to make the ones that go horizontal pink. And if you just hold down your mouse key and drag it, it will do them all. And then I'll make the vertical ones purple and go across like that. And then we'll make the corners green. And just try and hit each one of those corners so it turns a color. And the same design will go in each color. Now, the reason I've got different colors vertically and horizontally, you'll see in just a moment. Okay, I've got everything colored. Let's click OK. Now I can come in and fill these in. Let's go back up to our designs, our quilt designs, and select rectangles, because we have some in here that are smaller, like we would use for sashing, and pick something fairly simple. Here's a border design, or a sashing design, sashing or a border actually, and I'm going to pull that right down here to the pink and have it fit to cell. Then I'm going to take that same design, and it's still selected, you can see right here in the center, and I'm going to come up here and copy it and paste it and drag it over to the side, rotate it, and fit it to cell. So now that's fit in there. Then I just have my little green ones to do. So let's find a simple design to go in there up here with our designs. We'll do a single. Something very simple like, oh, how about this little floral here? Click OK. I'm going to pull that over into a corner and again have it fit to cell. Now, if I dismiss the quilt grid, I can see exactly what that quilt's going to look like. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so Dory, do we have questions so far?
Sorry, it's a little slow with the left hand.
Oh, sorry.
Quite all right. I was asked by one of our folks there, Miss Diane wants to know, if we select a design from the library, will it fit in all of the same colored squares?
Absolutely. That was what I was going to do next. So let's try that.
Well, okay, and before you run away, I'll give you the second question.
Okay, good. Shoot.
Rochelle asked, can you create unique quilt designs in this?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Actually, you can in Perfect Embroidery Pro, My Quilt Embellisher, and even you can create run stitch designs in My Block Piecer. But in Quilt Planner, it will use any design you want to. You just don't digitize from scratch in here. Okay, so let's see what happens. We'll turn our quilt back on. And let's see what happens if we fill this with a different design. I'm going to come over to my library and on the right-hand side here and scroll down. I have a lot of quilt designs loaded in here. And I'm going to select, Fun with Squares. Let's do one of our Fun with Squares blocks. These are some designs that are available from your local inspiration dealer. And I'm just going to pull it out there while I delete this one. And then I can fit it here. Now, if I want it to be a little bit smaller, I can, instead of fit it to cell, I can center it in the cell. But in this case, I do want it to fill the whole cell, so I can fill it like that. So I can take any design I own, whether it was created in inspiration software or somewhere else. I've purchased them. I've been collecting quilt designs for quite some time. So I often look to see, what all I can play with, which is why it takes me a long time at certain points to audition designs. Oops, let's move that out of the way. Hello. And you'll notice when I do this, there's only one square or one cell that is outlined in my highlight color, which is this kind of a neon blue. That's the only one you can select and manipulate, but then it's populated throughout every cell that is the same color. So if I want to get rid of that one and try something different, I'll move it over. Let's rotate that a couple of times, fit it to the cell, and we'll do the same thing with the horizontal one. Delete that. And again, I can just select this one and do copy, paste, and of course you can use any of the Windows conventions and the shortcut keys to do that, whatever you're most comfortable with. And we will fit that to the cell. And there you go. So we have a whole different look now. Different designs and different looks. Okay, now when you have decided that, boy, that's really the look I want to go for, let me show you what happens. We will take this and select to export the quilt. This takes all of this information and puts it into a folder for you. Let me show you what it does. I click here. Then I'm going to select my file name. I'll do 36, we'll just do 6x6 quilt or 5x5 quilt. 5x5 quilt. Just give it a name, whatever name you want. Quilt. And you can save it in the format for your machine. So if I was going to do it with my Baby Like Brother machine, I select PES format, and I can select any format I want. I usually pick number 5 because it doesn't ask me for a hoop size, and I like that. And then I will click Save. Now, when it saves it, you'll notice it comes up like this, and it saves 5x5 quilt in a folder. In that folder, there are 4 designs. The first design, here I'll pull it over so you can see better. The first design, oh, you know what? I don't have my Perfect Stitch Viewer installed on here, so you can't see them. But 1 will be the square, 2 and 3 will be the 2 different borders, and the 4th one will be the
Oh, did we get paused? Okay, Tierma's having technical difficulties and it happens to be from the weather. We're very sorry.